Hey there, this is Erin. So I'm making this video for one agent in particular who reached out to me this week, and I want to talk about new builds. And the main focus of this video is I heard that there is a local builder who is offering an incentive to buyers to not work with an agent at their new build site. And it's kind of short-sighted, I think, for builders to forget that realtors are a great source of their business. We can direct a lot of buyers to a subdivision and to a builder, and we definitely help them a lot by doing that. And so to try to incent a buyer not to work with realtors and actually give them money, that's kind of came up this week and I was shocked. So I wanted to create this video about why a buyer should work with a realtor. One thing I can assure you is that whatever spiff that they're giving to that buyer to not work with a realtor is way less than what that realtor would have actually made on the deal and brought to the table in terms of services to provide to that buyer. But let's talk about it. So I decided to come up with 10 reasons why a buyer should work with a realtor agent in the purchase of their new build home. I mean, it's very, the most simplistic view of it is, well, the realtor, all they do is they just walk in, they sign me in to this new build. I buy the house, and what did they do? So I want to provide you with a list of 10 things that realtors do and can bring to the table when a buyer is buying a new build. Okay. So I think the first and most important thing, it should go without saying, but I just want to make sure everyone understands, the builder's representatives are not there to represent the buyers. They represent the builders, and some of them are not even licensed. So they're not even licensed. Some of them are, but some aren't. And in all the contracts, it's going to state that the representatives there in that new build center that are selling you these properties, they represent the builder, not the buyer. Okay. So independent representation means that you have an advocate, somebody there who's advocating for you, negotiating for you, standing up for you, advising you throughout the process as your agent, instead of working with the agent of the seller, who is that new build agent. So it should go without saying, but independent representation has been proven to be a good thing. Secondly, the next thing that you can provide is perspective on the competition. So, that builder is not the only builder in town. There are competing subdivisions, there are competing builders, and there's even potentially resales available in that same community or nearby that you could look at. So you want to make sure that your buyer has seen the competition and knows what else is out there. Okay, so that's the second thing. You can take them around and show them the competition. Remember, new build properties are great because nobody's ever lived in them before, and you can, have a wide degree of design and all that. But, there is a markup for getting that new car smell, so to speak. And that markup is about 20% over what the same thing would be a resale. And so realtors can bring a little bit of competition, a little bit of perspective into that search. Third thing is negotiations. So, you may think that, there's no room to negotiate, or as a buyer, you may not be the strongest negotiator. Your realtor can negotiate, and your realtor doesn't have to worry about being nice or everybody liking them. They can ask questions that maybe you'd be embarrassed to ask. And instead of just assuming that the prices are what they are, it's kind of like buying a car, right? Not everybody likes to go to the lot to buy a car. On those new builds, the new build the builder may tell you, well, this floor plan is $400,000 and this lot is an additional $50,000 lot premium. But your realtor can negotiate for you, and your realtor may even know specific things that they can use to help you negotiate, such as if the builder has built out several spec homes, which are homes that are already built out, they've already selected the finishes, they call them spec homes. A lot of times the builder needs to move those spec homes before they can break ground on more lots. And but if the spec homes are not under contract, they can't move forward with building the next properties. And so they really need to get those spec homes sold, particularly if you're heading into the end of the month sometimes. So it's like the end of the month and there's a spec home that hasn't sold. The builder could be under pressure to get that spec home sold, and you could get a much better deal on it than what they're saying. So negotiating. Third, the comps. Let's talk about comps. So comps are properties that are comparable that have sold. It's really hard to find comps on new build houses because they weren't necessarily in the MLS. A lot of builders, when they sell a new build home, they don't put it on MLS and sell it. They sell it right out of the new build center when people walk in. It wasn't out there on the MLS. So you can't just rely on the MLS. However, a realtor can go into Monsoon, they can go into the tax records, and they can find the properties that have already sold and closed in that subdivision that's under construction. And so like something that I used to do frequently is create a spreadsheet of every address, every property that sold, who bought it, what lender they used, what type of loan they used, how much down they put, what floor plan it was. I could usually tell that by the square footage and what they paid for it. The builder is not necessarily going to sit there and tell you, oh yeah, last month we sold that one for rock bottom price because it was the end of the month and the guy negotiated really hard and he was cash. They're not going to tell you the lowest price per square foot that they've sold. They're going to tell you the highest prices they've gotten in that community so far. So your realtor can put together a list of everything that sold and give you that competitive information on the comps. You're not going to get that from the salesperson. That's not in their best interest to tell you every single property that closed and exactly what it closed for already. But your realtor can do that for you. They can put together that information. The next thing that the realtor can help you with is due diligence. And I'm going to break this into two reasons. So number 5, realtors have access to something called the buyer's advisory, which is something that the Arizona Association of Realtors puts out. And it's basically a reminder that in addition to just looking at the house, you have to look at the whole area. And some of the things that the realtor can bring to the table is making you think about things like crime statistics, airports, air traffic patterns, airport noise, highways that might be going in, school districts, shopping centers that might be planned right down the street. I know that when I've been working with buyers of new builds, it's been very important to know that certain highways were going to be constructed and then to not buy right at the edge of the community. Some of my new build buyers had questions about power lines. I've had questions about who has bought what commercial space around and what businesses might be going in, who owns the land where the view is and whether that could be obstructed. So your realtor can give you a wider perspective of all the due diligence that you might not be thinking of as a buyer and answer those questions for you, things that might be material to you. So that's part of the due diligence. The next thing that a realtor can bring is a different type of due diligence, which is inspections. So your realtor can go with you to all the walkthroughs, such as when they're pouring the slab, when they stake out to pour the slab, when they are getting ready to do the framing. And then after they've done the framing, but they haven't put the drywall in yet. And then that final inspection. So your realtor can be with you on all those important milestone dates and can be with you at the property to do all those activities, just so it's not just you and the builder. Additionally, your realtor can recommend professional inspectors if you want to spend the money on that, to have a professional inspector there to do those same inspections. Something that you can catch at like a framing out stage would be whether things are at the right angle, or the windows are looking like they're going in at the right level or the right size, or look at the plumbing, the electrical before the drywall goes in. And we can recommend inspectors, and there are actually 4 different types of inspections, professional inspections that can be done during the build process that a lot of buyers don't know about. They just think, oh, well, I'll go there on my final walkthrough when I'm getting keys. Well, it's too late then to know what's going on behind the walls. And so your realtor can advocate for inspections. I always advise my buyers that if the inspector, let's say it cost $400 to do those inspections, let's say we got at least $400 worth of repairs out of it, then it paid for itself. But sometimes, I mean, I've seen examples where a very large local builder had put a roof on wrong, and it was a $10,000 roof kind of reconstruction. And it's a big, well-known builder in a very well-known subdivision around here where there was $10,000 worth of problems on the roof already, and the buyer hadn't even gotten the keys yet. So that is something to look at. And we can help advise and be there and recommend those type of inspections. The next thing is looking at things from a resale perspective. So it's highly likely that if a buyer is using you to help them purchase a resale or purchase a new build, they're going to use you when they go to sell it. And so there's going to be a lot of decisions that you're going to make in the buying process. Maybe it's the lot, maybe it's the floor plan, or maybe it's the finishes that you're picking out, or decisions you're making on whether to plumb gas for the dryer, a gas dryer versus an electric dryer, those type of things. And to have a realtor with you making those decisions helps you to think about resale. And not all buyers really are thinking about resale as much as they should be. And that's something special that the realtor can bring to the table, because we know the most popular floor plans. We know, whether that lot premium of $50,000 is really going to be worth $50,000 to you when you go to sell the property. Probably not. So those are the kind of things we can bring to the table. The next thing is help at the design center. So when you go to the design center as a buyer, sometimes you might feel a little overwhelmed with all the choices. You might feel a little lost about what to choose. Your realtor can go with you to the design center and help you pick out, all the finishes, or decide what's going to go with what. Maybe you're going with your husband or your spouse, and you guys are at odds on whether to do white cabinets or dark black cabinets in the kitchen. Your realtor could jump in and say, well, I'm going to tell you that for resale, I think this is the way to go. Remember, at the design center, that is a profit center for the builders. So when you buy a new build, you have to plan on at least 20 to 30% additional spend at the design center, picking out finishes, picking out cabinetry, lighting, ceiling fans, paint, different things at the design center. And your realtor can help you stay within your budget and help you make decisions so that you don't go crazy and spend more than what you budgeted for, and then also help to make sure that those are the right choices for resale. So one thing that I would always recommend is if I had a client who was looking at whether to put in a backsplash after closing or put in run gas lines after closing, I would always recommend run the gas. I mean, if it's either or, run the gas line now, because it's so much cheaper to run gas to the dryer or to the stove now before the house is being built than after. And you know what? A backsplash, you could do that relatively cheaply after you close on the house. And I have 3 great contractors that could come in and give you a bunch of great options on backsplash. So things like that, like what is cheaper to build after you close with, open market contractors versus what is the stuff that really you get the most bang for your buck if you let the builder put it in for you. So we can be there to help you with those decisions. So I guess those are that's 8 or 9 already, but I'm going to throw one more in there. I think that throughout the whole process, there can be frustration points for the buyer, and the buyer might say, is this normal? And I'll give you 3 examples of, is this normal? And I forgot a really big one here. This is big. the contract. So the new build contract is different than the resale contract in Arizona. And every new build has their own contract, every builder. And they're all different. But one thing is the same about all of them, and you can be sure of this, is that those new builder contracts are in favor of the builder. Okay. And so one thing that you can do is you can be there with your buyer to go through that contract before they sign it and ask questions. As a buyer, your buyer might be overwhelmed by this big contract, but you might want to slow down that process and go through the contract section by section by section. If there's a section about non-refundable earnest money, you might want to stop there and go through some scenarios like, well, what if my buyer loses his job during this process? Is he going to lose his $10,000? What about appraisal? What if my buyer chooses a lot of really extra stuff in the design center and the house doesn't appraise? What happens then? Do we have to pay over appraisal? So to be there to ask those questions during the contract signing process is very important. And I remember one time I sat with a builder and a client, and we were going through the contract and I was asking questions, and the buyer had a question and the builder said, oh, all new build contracts have that. And I knew for a fact that all new build contracts did not have that. You have to remember, not all those people that you're working with in the new build sales center, not all of them are even licensed. And maybe some of them haven't even seen other builders' new build contracts. And the representative said, yeah, that's in all new build contracts. And I knew for sure it was. And I said, no, it's not. That's not in all contracts. That's in your contract. But we could go to another builder and that wouldn't be in the contract. So that's a place where you can really add value, is just asking questions with your client before they sign the contract. And, answering the question, is this normal? Sometimes builders get behind schedule and your buyer may get nervous about the closing date. Is this normal? And not to add a scary story, but I'll just throw it out there. Recently, we had a situation where a buyer found, they had closed on their new build house and in the attic found human feces in the attic. Is that normal? No, that's not normal. That's the very abnormal thing to find. But, why? Why could this have happened? Because, of course, the buyer was very emotional, very upset. They had children, they were worried about what else might be behind the walls that, had been drywalled in. There could be more feces inside the walls for all they knew. As a realtor, you can add a little bit of perspective, or your broker can. Sometimes subcontractors would do something like that to sabotage the main builder, because maybe the subcontractors weren't getting paid on time or weren't getting paid. Or maybe the new build site hadn't been properly secured during the build process. Maybe it was a security issue where people had gotten in and were living in the, homeless people. I don't know, but there could be a bunch of different reasons. Absolutely not normal. And then, okay, well, what do I do now? What are some of my options now that we've found this problem? And, do I have recourse? Should I talk to an attorney? Things like that. We can provide a lot of, is this normal? And just overall be a sounding board throughout the entire process. And a lot of times buyers really need that. It takes the stress level way down. So I've just given you 10 solid reasons why we earn our pay when we are assisting buyers with new builds, and why we can add that much value to the buyers and put that much money back in the buyer's pocket, whether it's in resale, whether it's helping them negotiate right now a better price, discovering the comps in the actual neighborhood where they're buying, where people have already purchased, whether we can help them save money in the design center. There's a lot of money at stake here, but there's also a lot of comfort and advocating that we can do for our buyers. So that's what a realtor can bring to the new build process. I hope you liked this video. I hope it was helpful.